So now we're going to get into the actual, how do you actually connect to our system? So if you're new to HPC, this can sometimes be a big hurdle, because it's a little bit different than maybe what you're used to. So we're going to try to go through all of the different things, not only just how to connect to our systems, but some of the other parts of NERSC that you may need to use as part of your transition and your work at NERSC. Okay, so we're going to go through account setup. It's the first thing in order to use NERSC is to have an account. And what does that look like? We're going to talk about something called Iris. Iris is kind of like our I like to use analogies because apparently that's how I learn things. So my analogy for Iris is it's kind of like a lab notebook. It's like a way to just keep track of. So again, Rebecca mentioned these allocations. Essentially, when you get a NERSC account, if you're not a PI, you may not be familiar with this, but you get a certain number of hours you get to use on our system. So Iris can help you keep track of that. Then we're actually going to talk about connecting to Perlmutter. So we're going to talk about how to use SSH, as well as a really great service we provide called Jupyter. And I'll mention a forwarding client, an X forwarding client, ThinLink, which is what we're transitioning to. We're in the process of a transition, but this is something that you can use for if you're trying to run a GUI app on NERSC, just to make the process a little bit better. Rebecca did talk about submitting user tickets. I'm going to go a little bit more into detail, or if we don't get through it, the slides are there. I'll show you the NERSC documentation. We have really thorough documentation. And then we also have a NERSC homepage, which is, so it's basically people might ask, like, well, what are these two different websites? They serve kind of different purposes. And so I'll show you what those different purposes kind of are. Okay, so you may already have an account set up, but if not, you will probably get one. There's basically two types of accounts. So there's like your personal account, your user account. You have your own login. You do your authentication with this, and then any kind of, you'll get access to resources based on your user information. And your PI, so the PI, we have projects at NERSC. So someone can be a PI on a project, which just means they're kind of like in charge of that project. They can send you a link to request an account if you don't have one already. And then there's the project itself. So, like Rebecca said, the Office of Science, the different offices within the Office of Science give projects allocations on our system. And it's kind of like a bank account that you use to pay for your time using the system. So it's not actual money. Well, somewhere down the line it is money. But if you're a user at NERSC, you don't have to think of it as money. You think of it as, okay, I'm allowed to use 100 hours at NERSC. So when I run this job, I'm going to use up 5 hours or something like that, right? So it's kind of an account in that sense. And projects are given those allocations. So a user may get some portion of that allocation set aside for them to use. All all NERSC users will be on a project. So you most likely have a default project, and if you uh so you can have multiple projects, but you'll have kind of a default project. And I think I'll show you in this, but essentially Iris is a place where you can go. So let's say you're on a couple different projects, but you have one project you're going to be charging to the most. You can like set that as your default, so you can sort of avoid a little bit of the hassle of like always changing which project you're charging to if you are really only using one. Um, so all users at NERSC have to sign our acceptable use policy. And this was just updated, right? If Rebecca's still here, I believe it just was updated. You you pretty much can't use the system until you've read or accepted this policy. And that also, I believe, happens in Iris. But if you want to read all of the information, what is it that is, which you should, which is basically our policies of what's allowed on the system, what isn't allowed. This is called the AUP, acceptable or appropriate. Is it appropriate or acceptable? I wrote acceptable here and then it says appropriate here and I don't remember. But the AUP is what spells out kind of what you can and can't do on our system. And I would recommend going and reading that. So it's on our nurse.gov website. I have the link here. If you go to the website, you can follow this path here to find the policy here, or you can use the link from the PDF. We also have a code of conduct, which actually usually at the beginning of our training sessions, we like to mention it. This is just to remind everybody that we really want to have a collaborative user environment. Like Rebecca said, we have this NERSC user group. We have a Slack space. We want to encourage people to communicate with each other, collaborate, ask questions, ask us questions. But just remember that, when you are interacting with other people, there's, a good way to do that, by being respectful. And our code of conduct, we're actually one of the first high performance computing facilities to have a code of conduct, just because we want to have a lot of engagement, but just make sure we're doing it in a really good and safe way. So if you're interested in that, I believe everybody, just like the acceptable use policy, everybody has to read and sign this before they get on our system. And you can read about it, again, on our nurse.gov website, under policies, and the link is provided here. Okay. Another thing that's really, 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 really important is having a good password. We ask everybody to change their password every year. And it's also really important to never ever share your password. Do not share it with other colleague, even if it's your best friend, collaborator, they should have their own user account. It's really important that you are not sharing your account. You're not sharing your own email account and then they use that to get your NERSC information. None of those things are appropriate. It's really important. In general, passwords are meant to be kept to the user who set the password. Um, we don't actually require any kind of specific, like you have to have an uppercase, a lowercase, blah, blah, blah. We don't actually do that. But we'll want to provide good examples and, kind of bad examples, just so you remember that password security is important. So having a good password means having maybe a bunch of random words, bunch of random letters, random numbers. I would not be able to remember a bunch of random words or letters or numbers. So you can definitely use, there are secure methods for storing this kind of information. I'm not going to advocate for one or the other, but if you're going to set a good password, you want to have a way of keeping track of it as well. Don't set, nurse password or, maybe not the name of your pet or something like that, something that someone could very easily guess. If they knew you or even if they found your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever social media you use. Login failures will take place, or your account will get locked after 5 consecutive login failures. So if you're having trouble, you can reach out to us on account support. We can reset your password for you, and so you can. It's kind of the same. I mean, I do this a lot when I have accounts where I'm like, I don't remember what my password is. You can reach out to us, and we just click a button that says reset password, and then you can set it again if you need to. And this is also going to be done on Iris. So again, once I get to Iris, you'll see how that's done. Okay, MFA is required. MFA stands for multi-factor authentication. You will need to use this a lot. It's really important at NERSC. It's actually really important in general. I use MFA for like every type of account I have now, because I've had experiences where I'm seeing like the MFA come up on my phone and I'm like, well, I'm not logging into that. So someone is trying to break into this account, but because I have my MFA, I'm just watching them fail, because I get texted these codes and I can see that they don't get the code and they can't get in. So this happened to my Discord account last year sometime, and I was like, whoa, I'm literally watching someone try to do this right now. So you are required to use it. And so how do you set it up if you haven't? So we're going to talk about Iris because MFA and a lot of the things I've talked about are set up using Iris. Okay, so like I mentioned, my kind of analogy for Iris is that it's kind of like a lab notebook. It's used to track a couple different things. So for you can manage your password and MFA. You can track your use of your compute hours, your storage space, different projects, and you can also check your job history there. So you can literally go through and see all the jobs you've ever run, how much was actually charged. It's very, very good. It's all automatically populated in there for you. And there's also other things in there that I'll mention, but I don't even remember all the time. So sometimes it's like, oh, you can go explore Iris and find out the kinds of stuff in there that might be useful to you. Um, oh yeah, I think in the past what I've done is I've just gone to Iris. So let's see if mine will work. Okay, so when you go, actually, wait, let me go back to this for a second. Oh, okay, I see. Sorry. So when you go to Iris for the first time, you will get this thing called Federated ID, and it will ask you which institution you want to log in with. You right now you have to log in with NERSC. And I'm sorry, I always forget this. Is it you can't like pick your own institution even if it's in here, right? It has to be NERSC. Okay, I hope that's right. I can't see if anyone's telling me otherwise. And so then you're going to go in here and you're going to type in your username and password. Um, the first time you log in, if you don't have your MFA set up, it's not going to ask you for MFA, obviously, because you don't have it set up. So you're just going to go in, type in your username and password, and log in. In my case, because when I do this, it asks me for my MFA. And in my case, I have my MFA on my phone using the Google Authenticator app. Um, so I will go on my phone and use, let's see, oh, it's about to change. So there, boom. Woohoo. Okay. So the first time you log into Iris, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to this MFA tab up here, MFA right here, and you're going to add a token. And when you do that, the nice thing is it's pretty easy to set up. You're going to add your token right here, and then you can give a description of which authentication method you're going to use. I like to use the Google Authenticator app on my phone. So let's click this. I'm not actually going to do it, but I would be like, phone or whatever. And then actually, wait, if I do this, I hope it doesn't. Okay, so then what you would do on your phone is you would scan this QR code and then just follow the instructions on your app. Okay. Um, so then once you have your MFA set up, you shouldn't really have to worry about it unless you need to reset it again in the future for some reason, which you I don't know when you might need to do that, but if you did need to, you could do it here. I'm also going to show you, so you can see all these, there's a lot of different things in here, but the other thing I want to show you is your jobs history. And I haven't run any jobs in a long time, so it's not going to show anything here. Let me see, maybe if I go back a couple years or something, it'll show something. Let's see, did I run any jobs? No, I haven't run any jobs. But if you do, you can go in here and you'll see all of your jobs and you can click on them and get information about them. Similarly, you can see here there's CPU and GPU. So you'll have a CPU and a GPU allocation. You'll see how much is remaining on those. You can click specifically on one of these projects and find out, how are we doing? This one has a certain amount of time, how much have we used and so forth. So this is when I say accounting, this is kind of what it looks like. There's a cool little plot here. It's like zooming in and out of. But again, this is all being kept track of for you. You don't have to do anything here. So you can go in here and find out whatever information you need to find out. Okay. I suggest, and I'm running a little low on time, so I'm not going to do too much more. But what I really recommend is once you get into Iris, is just click around and see all the different things in there. There's a way to change your default shell. So if you're not a bash user, you want to use something else, you can do that. There's a lot of different things in Iris that, like I said, I don't even remember all the time. So it's a great tool to go and explore a little bit. And then you can always, if you're confused about something or you need help with something, you can always reach out to us or put it in the Q&A doc. Okay, let's talk about actually connecting. So I like to just remind everybody how to do this by first showing you how not to do it. So there's this movie that I love a lot, and I really like using this example because I think it's so funny because this movie is really good about a lot of things, and then this one thing they just went totally like full on Hollywood movie, you know, for some reason. So this movie is called The Martian. Matt Damon is stuck on Mars, and we got to bring him home, right? We gotta get him back. And the person in charge of this is uh, Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino. He's a physicist, and he needs to do some calculations. And so he's sitting in the NASA HPC facility, and he's taken his laptop and he has plugged it into a server rack using some random cable. Um, and oh, I think this is so funny. His thing tells him that his calculations are correct, which is not usually how that works. But basically, this is an example of how not to connect to an HPC resource. You do not need to be in the data center. You do not need to take your laptop and plug it in with some random cord. In fact, please don't do that. You will probably be escorted out of the building. So do not do this. It's way easier than this. All you do need is your laptop or computer with something called a terminal installed and an internet connection. And then, of course, your username, password, and MFA. So you don't need to be there. You just need an internet connection. Okay. Oh yeah, we have this great video. I really hope the sound works. Let me double check if the sound's gonna work. Okay, good. All right, we're gonna watch Lisa tell us how to log in.
Welcome to NERSC. In this video, you will learn how to log into NERSC systems. NERSC is a scientific computing center at Berkeley Lab, the national lab with the best views, as you can see. NERSC is located on the beautiful hills here in Berkeley, and our current system is called Perlmutter. My name is Lisa, I'm a performance engineer at NERSC, and I will guide you through the process of logging into Perlmutter with the SSH command. To get started, we need to open the terminal. If you are unfamiliar with using a terminal, you can learn more through the HPC Carpentries workshop that's linked in the video description below. Also, make sure you know your NERSC username and your password and have your MFA or multi-factor authenticator app set up. If you don't have any of those available, check out our documentation at docs.nersc.gov/getting started. All right, I think we are ready. I open my terminal and type SSH, and then my NERSC username is Elvis. So I type Elvis at perlmutter.nersc.gov. This is too long for you. You can replace Perlmutter with Sol. Fun fact, Perlmutter is named in honor of Sol Perlmutter, an astrophysicist at Berkeley Lab. He insisted on giving users the option of using Sol instead of Perlmutter to log in, since Sol is quicker to type than Perlmutter. Now hit the Enter key, and if this is your first time signing on to Perlmutter, you will be asked to add an RSA fingerprint. Please type yes and press the Enter key. The fingerprint will be added, and in future you will not be asked again. Now you will be asked for your password and your OTP. OTP stands for one-time password. The OTP is obtained from the multi-factor authenticator app. It will be a 6-digit number that changes every 30 seconds. If your password is, for example, ABCDEF and the OTP is 919595, type in ABCDEF 919595 and press the Enter key. Yay, congrats, you made it. You are now logged into Perlmutter. To be precise, you are in a Perlmutter login node. If you encounter any issues logging in, check out our documentation on troubleshooting or submit a ticket to the NERSC help desk. If you have comments or requests for additional videos, contact us at nersc-user-videos@lbl.gov.
Woohoo! Amazing. Okay. Love Lisa. Is she here? Are we in the presence of a celebrity? Maybe not. She's too busy for us. Lisa's amazing. She's making way more videos, so if you need help and our documentation is too wordy for you, you can watch a video made most likely, probably, definitely by Lisa. Okay, so as she mentioned, you need something called a terminal program. Just to mention a couple, so Macs will come sort of built in with a terminal, or you can use a fancier one, iTerm 2. I don't know if there's a 3 yet, but these are just terminal programs with bells and whistles. Windows users, I think, often use Putty, or maybe MOBA Xterm. These are some popular ones. You just go to the website and download them. I think there's several options. I'm not a Windows user, so I really couldn't tell you. Linux, again, I love that. Your own favorite, whichever one you want. Again, I think there's a standard built-in one. And apparently Chromebooks also have the ability to do this, but again, I've never used a Chromebook. So if you need to, you could just type in whatever type of computer you have and like terminal program. And these should be free. You should absolutely not have to pay for any of these. Um, okay, and then just follow the instructions that Lisa gave you. Don't do what Donald Glover did in this fantastic movie. Another really popular way to log into NERSC is through Jupyter. So we provide a service called Jupyter. It kind of the PY I think kind of started because it was really used for a lot of like Python, these things called like Python notebooks, but it's way more than that now. It's not just Python. I think in my head I still sometimes am really associated with Python, but it's really way beyond that. So it's kind of a graphical interface for signing into any server, any system. So in our case, you can sign into Perlmutter and actually get different sessions based on what you select. So it's a little small here. Oops. And we're going to go into detail on Jupyter, I think tomorrow. So this was just like a really quick one slide, but we'll actually do all of this tomorrow. I'm going to show you a step-by-step of signing in via Jupyter. So you can pick what type of session you want. There'll be a terminal within Jupyter, but then there's also all these great notebooks and everything. So like I said, we'll see this tomorrow. So if SSH, excuse me, isn't your jam, we have Jupyter as well. Okay. I'm gonna quickly mention this. Again, I'm not going to do it like a demo or anything, but there may be times when you're running a sort of like a GUI application on Perlmutter. For example, MATLAB, we have some MATLAB users. There's something called DDT, which is a debugging tool, or Nsight, which is used for performance, like application performance, especially if you're using GPUs. But these can be really slow over a network. And just to explain kind of why that is, there's this protocol called X protocol, which is what's used to basically send you the information about what's kind of showing up on like if there was a monitor attached to Perlmutter, like what you would be seeing there. And so while we have a really fast internet within our system, when it goes over your internet, it's really slow because just in general, even if you have gigabit internet, it's not the same as like terabit, right? So this process can be really slow. And so we make use of these forwarding clients, which basically run the GUI or whatever actually on the system inside, and then they forward you that information over the internet rather than trying to forward what's happening on the application over the internet. So you don't necessarily need to understand exactly what's happening here. I definitely don't understand all of it. But the point is, if you are going to be running any kind of GUI, you're going to want to use one of these forwarding clients. And the general process of how to set this up, and the reason I have really general information here is because we're actually in the process of a transition right now. You're going to download the client from the website. We will provide you a link. So, you don't have to go around Google. Like what in our documentation, we tell you exactly which thing to download. You'll set up the connection. Again, using our documentation, we'll give you very specific instructions. Click on this button, type in this word, type in this thing, press go. And then it's pretty much that simple. You just sign in once you've set up your connection, and you can go forth and you can do your work. So you'll get more specific instructions. So you can still use No Machine. That's what we were using. We are currently still using something called No Machine to do this, NX. So if you go to our documentation, you can still absolutely use it. But we're going to transition our support to a different forwarding client, which is called ThinLink. So this is coming soon. But it's we're just in that process still. So like I said, you can still use No Machine. But soon we'll start using another one called ThinLink, which should be just as great. Okay, so and I'm gonna zip through this a little bit, but again, all of this information you have in your PDF version, because you have all these slides. But for one thing, we hope that you will get a lot out of this training and you can use our documentation. But if you do get to a point where you need to submit a user ticket, this is how you can do that. And I actually realize I should switch this around, talk about documentation first, but I think my slides are already in a certain order. So Rebecca showed you this help.nurse.gov website. This is where you're going to go to open like a help ticket. And she also showed you all the people who answer these tickets. We will do our best to help you, but in order to do that, oh, we will need some information from you. I also just want to show quickly there is a place to open requests. This might make more sense once we talk about storage systems in a moment. But for example, there are some storage systems where you can actually ask for a little bit more space for a little period of time. So when you click on this open requests button here, it'll take you to a list of requests. One of them is called storage quota, and then you can go here and tell us what you need and why you need it. Like I said, this might make more sense once we talk about storage systems, but I just want to show you all that this will also be done through here. How to file a good ticket. This is such an old slide with this old Drake meme. I love it. It is really helpful to us to get going on your ticket by if you give us a bunch of information. So if you just sort of tell us like this didn't work, what do I do? We're gonna end up asking you all of these questions anyways, like, okay, what was the error message? What was the job ID? Where are you running? Can you show me some like your list of modules that you're using, maybe some steps to reproduce? We're gonna have to ask you those questions anyway. So as much information as you can give us ahead of time will be really helpful. Um, I know that screenshots seem like they would be helpful, like just like this is what I'm seeing. But the one trick is sometimes screenshots when you attach them to a ticket show up really weird. And so there have been times where I can't even read them because there's not enough pixels or whatever. They just kind of show up weird. But then also I can't copy and paste. So if I want to be like, oh, okay, I see your file path. I'd like to like go look in there. I can't do that from an image. So in general, it's way better to send us like a long ticket with all this information in text, than a screenshot. Um, just some just to really drive this home, it's really hard to troubleshoot things like my job won't start, Perlmutter's broken, you know, my code is slow. That's not going to help us actually get to the problem. Versus something like this. Job XYZ was way slower than this job. And that gives us like, okay, we can actually go look and see, because we can access that information about your jobs just like you can go and look and see what actually happened. Like this, they said, this is when for a while we had two systems, and every single year I forget to change this example, but I've also had the people say, oh, well, this works on, this other system at my university, and now it's not working on Perlmutter. But they'll show us like a job script that they use. And sometimes it's really easy for us to see like, oh, well, the job script has, this thing that's very specific to your other system, but it's not going to work on Perlmutter. So we can see that kind of stuff. So again, anytime you can be more specific, it's going to help us. And seeing a really long error message is still going to be more helpful than not. Even if it turns out to not be relevant, that's okay. Sorry. Okay. Couple more minutes, I promise. The nurse documentation is vast and extensive. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice as I speak. Um, the we have this what we call technical documentation. So this is where you're going to go to find answers to specific things like, how do I submit these things called batch scripts? We're going to talk about running jobs. What does that mean? Tomorrow you'll see these things called batch scripts. It's a bit of an art form sometimes to write them. So we have tons of information on how to do that. Policy information, programming environment information, what kind of compilers do we offer? All of this information is going to be in this technical documentation, and you can find it at docs.nersc.gov. Again, really helpful to just go and explore. The search feature here is pretty good. So if you want to just type something in and search for it on on the actual docs website, you can find it there. We have some how-to guides. We have recently added beginner's guide, which I forgot to even put a screenshot in here. But in general, there's a lot of times where like a lot of users are trying to do this. Let's try to just make a guide so that you can just follow it step by step. We also have this cool thing called the job script generator. Like I said, job scripts, which is something we're going to talk about tomorrow, are can be a little bit of an art form sometimes. So there's this interactive tool you can use that will help you build your job script. And then at the end, once you specify all the information, you can literally copy and paste the script that we provide for you here. What again, once we talk about job scripts tomorrow, this might be really relevant to you to help you make your scripts easier. And then just quickly, we have our NERSC website. This is a little bit less technical. It's a little bit more like what's going on, general information about events, policies. We have this cool thing called Now Computing, where you can literally see who's doing what on the system, which is kind of cool. I think the main thing that I want to highlight here is our events calendar. So that will tell you about all of the different trainings. You can see this is from like the summer. We have tons of trainings going on all the time. So you might want to just go ahead and add, if you use Google Calendars or even if you use some other kind of calendar, I think there's a way to do it. Just add it to your calendar so you can always like pop in if you see something interesting that you want to attend. Some things will require registration. So it might say in the calendar invite, but some things don't. They might just be drop in and you can probably just participate. And then another really important thing is our live status. So usually I recommend if you're running on our system and something goes wrong, immediately go check our live status because it could be possible that we're having an outage, we're having a scheduled outage. Something isn't, spin sometimes needs maintenance, so maybe spin is down. And so that means Jupyter might not be working in that moment. Things like that. So this live status page is on our nurse.gov website and 100%, honestly keep it bookmarked. Just go check it up because if everything is working, you'll see up. Sometimes you'll see something say downgraded and it'll have a note that says we expect service to return at 4 p.m. or something like that. My top tip is when there are planned outages already scheduled, sorry, excuse me, add it to your calendar because I used to have this problem in grad school where I wouldn't, and then I would go to start doing my calculations, and then it'd be an outage day. So just if it's a disruptive outage, which means you won't have access to the system, just add it to your calendar so you can remember that, okay, that day I need to work on something else. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there.